Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can watch us on YouTube and Rumble while following us on Facebook, or find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe or follow today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Oh, good day, everybody. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly show, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meck. If this is your first time tuning in, please click like, subscribe, comment, and share. And also don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, Beyond the Surface, Transforming Generational Patterns, an internationally recognized intuitive energy healer and psychic medium, TV personality, radio, and podcast, featured expert and author of The Secret Power of You, a guide to mastering your inner greatness. She has been seen in and featured on Bravo's hit TV show, The Real Housewives of Potomac, and the OWN Network's Love and Marriage, DC, Hay House Radio, Beyond the Ordinary, Straight Talk for the Soul, Quantum Conversations, and several times on Good Morning Washington. There is so much more, so much more on this. Thought through her work as an intuitive energy healer, she has mastered the ability to access her own intuition, which allows her to fully envision the struggle, hurt, fears, and anxiety you are currently going through. Let's welcome to the seance for the first time, Terry Christine.
Yes. Yes. Got to celebrate ourselves, don't we?
It reminds me of Good Morning. Yes.
Yes.
Welcome. Humbled to have you with us today.
Oh, I'm so honored and grateful. Honestly, it's empowering to know that I can share and help people in a profound way. Internationally, I there's no time and space with energy. I have clients all over the world, and being able to share what I can, tips and tricks and stories, and whatever it is that I can lift you. Yeah.
So how did this ability first start for you as a child, or how did that?
For some people, and I actually am one of them, it can be from a life crisis. And, I was at the end of a 14-year relationship. And to me, it was a crisis because I wanted so much love from this man. I was literally squeezing blood out of a turnip. I just couldn't get it from him. He just didn't know how. And I did not understand that. And so when you don't understand that, you will keep beating your head against a wall. And at the end, I just didn't want to live, because I figured that if this is what life really is, and if this is what love is, I'm done. I'm out. Checked out. Boom.
Yeah.
I did everything, created 2 children. I'm good. And I found myself, I got out of the bed and I looked over at the clock, 3 a.m., that magical hour, no joke. I climbed into the bathroom and laid on the bathroom floor, and I, from all of the ounce from my soul, begged God to just take my soul. I'm done. And I had my eyes closed, but I was completely and fully aware I was awake. And then I just drifted out into expansion. My eyes were closed, but I could see stars so close I thought I could touch them. I could feel the dampness all around me. It literally was having me live in the space of energy. And within seconds, I heard, "Love will come." It was literally like that. I was standing in the middle of a speaker, so I didn't know where it was coming from. It was just all around me, very masculine, but rock on knew without a doubt, like, this is it. And I whooshed back in my body. I stood up like a dog right out of a bath. I shook myself. I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? And I went back to bed And I woke up and I knew my life was changed. I knew it because someone who's so far down has nothing else to give. So you have nothing to lose, right? And when you get into that space that you have hope, it literally is as if someone dropped that rope down into the well that you can climb up. And so, I was the one who took care of the kids. We had 2 children. They were small. I had a corporate job. I took care of the inside of the house. He took care of the outside of the house. And I did not have time to do anything but take care of everyone else. And so when I woke up, I'm like, I have this urge to go to the bookstore. I've got to read. I've got to. And I bought a mountain of books. People I didn't even know, but they're my mentors: Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay. I mean, I could go on and on. And then I was literally reading 2 books at the same time, and I was moving the pages as if I was a speed reader.
Yeah.
I was shocked at what was happening, and I was amazed that I could really understand and connect, even though that wasn't even part of who I was prior to that spiritual epiphany. Yoga? What's yoga? I was so corporate. I was so far from this world of what I do now. But then being able to say there's more to what I could not see and understanding it. And it was almost as if like, give me more, but I don't understand why I want more, but give it to me anyway.
Yeah.
That kind of feeling. And then reading. And then I got the strength to leave him. And then I just went on that journey. There were many things that I did. I tell all my clients, Reiki is the lily pad of starting into energy. It's simply the beginning lily pad. And so I started with that. And then I'm self-taught in a lot of things, even as a child. I self-taught I taught myself how to swim and several other things. And so I'm like, there's more to this. I kept saying, this is BS because I could do more with this. And I was moving it on my own. I could see how I could feel it going through my body. And I'm like, I could put it in their knee and I could put it in their head. And then my clients at the time, because I left corporate and I was an esthetician, and they would jump off the bed going, oh my God, what are you doing? I could feel what's going on. And then I started harnessing it, meaning I took a year course in intuitive development. I learned essential oils, crystal healing, and, all these things. I don't use them all, but I will find that over 19 years of practice, I'll get a flash and they'll say, I say they a lot. They'll say, put a rose quartz on the heart, or put, an amethyst on the sacral. And I'll just start doing it. And then I'll start visualizing. So I am clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient. So those are my superpowers that help me along the way. And I start telling people, now I specialize in the subconscious, where people are stuck, those limiting beliefs from childhood. But it doesn't mean parents are emotionally or physically abusive. It means, you have those interactions and child says something to themselves that's not true, but they never contracted out of it. But they're living it. And they don't understand, but they're blaming the people, places, and things around them. And then they're like, I'm stuck. I can't get out of this. And so they come to me, and all you have to do is give me your first name, and I tell you all about you. You don't have to tell me anything. And then I can shift it from the subconscious. So I have a private studio when, I tell people that are at least within 100 miles from me to come and see me. I have people flying in to see me, but I encourage the ones that are local. And then there is no time and space with energy. And I do have clients all over the world, but that's really what I hone in to help people shift all of those blueprints within them. So they feel like life is supporting them. They're getting the abundance that they want. Life is not so hard. And then I have these other things. I spent 5 years on a psychic website, became this really big person on this particular website. And then I realized, oh my God, I can't take anybody off this website. And, there's so many people in my backyard. So I kind of migrated off of that. And I'm also a medium. So that was the purpose behind the whole thing about energy work. And it's a long story, but the short end of it is my granddad died. And then I met this woman when I was still in corporate. And I connected her with my sister who was struggling to get over the fact my grandfather died suddenly. It saved her life, because she just wanted 5 minutes to ask some questions, to feel him near her.
Yeah.
And then the woman blew us away. And my whole sister's life changed. She wasn't talking about suicide. She wasn't talking about leaving this world. She was celebrating my grandfather versus feeling her loss. And I said to myself, I want to do that. I want to save people's lives like that. So my journey was to be a medium, but I kind of went around the world and back.
Yeah.
And so I still do that to this day, but most of my work is the intuitive healing.
Wow. Wow. And it's cool how you kind of honed in on all these different modalities. I do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like from essential oils to energy healing to Reiki to Qigong to there's so many things out there. It's like, it's like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So, but at least you have some information and knowledge to pass on to somebody if they want to move on to, check something out in order to help them through after a reading or stuff like that. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that, I'll get flashes of things that I have heard, or I worked with an acupuncturist for a year and a half, and he told me about certain herbs and certain products to use. And I'll get a flash and I'll tell my client, I was just shown that, you need this supplement. And she'll, oh my God, I'm having trouble with that. And so I'll go to, Amazon or whatever, I'll look it up, or if he recommended a certain brand. And so I do that as well, so that the physical body is supporting the spiritual body too.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what are generational patterns?
So, okay, I can give you a perfect example. I just saw my grandparents. I love that. This happens to me quite often through all my sessions. So for my grandparents, my grandfather fought in World War II. And once he got out, that my grandfather and his brother, my uncle, built Thomas Brothers Garage. And then after that, they closed the garage, and then my grandfather became a mechanic for Carolina Trucking. And this is all in the Baltimore area. My grandmother worked for a telephone company before it was AT&T, Bell Atlantic. I think it was even before Bell Atlantic.
Western Electric. My mom worked for Western Electric ever since the early 2000s, actually. And we started in Pennsylvania.
Okay, this was when you had to put the little things, the little tubes in the holes to connect people.
Yeah.
My grandmother had pictures of those.
Wow.
So, yes. So she did that and then moved over, and then she retired from there. She worked there a gazillion years. And so now their belief is no credit cards. If you want to buy anything, you have to buy it with cash. You have to save your money and put it in the bank. So then now come along my parents, and then they never had credit cards, and the same thing. So what ended up happening, and this is an amazing story, so thank you for asking that. So my sister and I doing the same thing, no credit cards, buying things. But what ended up happening is I realized in my 30s that I'm like, I want to buy a new car. I'm always buying used everything. And I told her, I said, I've been saving and saving. And every time I went to buy the car, the wash machine breaks, the dishwasher breaks, something breaks down, right? And I never get the new car, so I had to buy the used car.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm done living like this. And in my 20s, and it was literally in my 20s, I bought my first new car, and I went all out. It was a BMW convertible.
Nice.
I went all out. But I also know that I don't live outside of my means. My parents had that little balance. However, you have to learn to balance as well. But when after that, then things became easier. I broke free of the generational pattern that my grandparents created, that you can't buy anything unless you have it all in cash. The same thing with my parents. And the moment that I said, I'm done being sick and tired of being sick and tired and things breaking down and me not getting where I wanted to be, I'm going to live in the space, buy the new car, balance it out. And it's been full steam ahead. But my sister still hasn't learned that pattern. So she still buys things used. She still has things that are old and breaking down. But I chose I was about 24 that I'm like, I'm not letting that happen. And my whole life has changed and things are easy. I do not live in lack, but I also know the balance as well.
Yeah. And with today's technology, it's like, how can anybody live in lack? It's like, there's so much stuff out there. It's like, even if you're the simplest person, there's so much opportunity.
So, and Dr. Paul, I want to bring that up because I did a podcast a couple of days ago, and the woman's son, she was telling me about him, and she was saying that he was responding, I can't get anywhere, delete, because she said, I am, and that's where you're owning it. You're saying,
Yep.
I am, blah, 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 right? So she was saying to me that he's saying, I can't get anywhere. I'm never going to get what I want, blah, blah, blah. Those negative, woe is me kind of things.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, he's burying himself and it's going to take so much longer to get what he's saying that he does want when he's already setting himself up for failure, saying he can't do it. So it's not fake it till you make it. It's in the sense of believing that you can have it.
Yeah.
Okay. And believing you can have it is going to allow you to open doors energetically to allow it to happen. Now, it may take a little bit because I tell people when you're in an old pattern, you're wanting to create new patterns, that when you're here in the old pattern before you work with someone like me to go into the subconscious, that letters have been mailed that are the old patterns of who you are. So if you have a session with someone like me, that your energy has shifted and that you still may receive some of those letters, because remember, they've already been mailed, but it doesn't mean that you haven't shifted your energy, and it doesn't mean that nothing has happened, because it has. You just have to realize that, oh, these letters have already been mailed, so those things are happening. You have to respond differently.
Yeah.
Don't get upset. Don't own it. Don't let it take you down. Say, nope, this isn't for me. I'm going to go through this door.
Yeah. It's stirring up that energy, that of thought of those affirmations. I am. And it takes a while for that energy to start building up. Like energy attracts like energy. It does. Yeah. It takes a while, but impatience is definitely everybody's enemy. But got to be careful.
Yes, that was years of me learning that myself, and realizing that even when the clock strikes 12, you're going to get what I've learned that everybody says deserve so much. And people are like, what do you mean I deserve it? That sounds egotistical. Well, then what it is that's supporting you in your best and highest good, right? And it shouldn't be struggle. It should be ease and grace. But we are going to have some things that are going to be the ebb and flow, the up and down, because if you had chocolate cake for every day for an entire year, I bet you in about 6 months, you won't be eating that chocolate cake anymore because it doesn't taste that great. So if life was so easy for so long, you're not going to appreciate everything that truly is around you, even the four walls that are around you, the opportunity to be right here, having this water that I'm drinking, and the phone and all of those things, instead of where some are just so tunnel vision and they're only grateful for a gift that's given to them on their birthday or the raise they got. Well, what about the job that you have and the car that got you to work?
Yeah. Being grateful, being humble, integrity. I mean, the simple things, and being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get to your book, how can people find you?
Oh, thank you. So, I have a website, terrychristine.com, where actually I'm giving a 15-minute guided meditation. It's free. It has theta sound to take you to the deeper level of the mind. You can find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. My book is on Amazon, and Love and Marriage DC, season 1 and 2, which is found on OWN Network, and Real Housewives of Potomac, which actually was season 7, I think, but it was just one episode where I had 5 episodes on love and marriage.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now let's get to the book here. Let me bring that up so people know what to look for. It's called
Yes.
The Secret Power of You, a guide to mastering your inner creations. How did you start on this book? What was the inspiration?
Well, that spiritual epiphany I talked about at the beginning was really the deep part of my transformation into spiritual work. But as I was developing and growing, and my clients were growing, and my audience was growing, I realized that this is not hard. It really isn't. And then over time, I started getting, and I'm sure you've heard some of your guests on your show say downloads.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got a download of something this simple, and do this and this tip and this trick. And I started getting them, and I'm like, this is way too easy. Why do we make life so hard and complicated? And so I put it in the book. So I look at the book as your tool for success, meaning being able to have these easy yet profound techniques in here to help you see your limiting beliefs, how to shift them. Because, I went through tremendous emotional pain in that relationship. As I said, squeezing blood out of a turnip. He just couldn't give me the love that my heart was craving for. No one should have to go through that twice. And I at least tell all my clients, you come to me, you're experiencing it, but you're not going to experience it twice. And that's my ultimate purpose, is that no one has to be suffering and experiencing this type of emotional, physical, or spiritual pain in the world. And so I put it in the book. And also as I go through, with my clients and develop every day, it's not often that I see anything new because I've been doing this for over 19 years. However, I still do occasionally, and then I'm like, "What? I'm in the candy store. I got something new."
Right?
Yes, yes,
Now,
yes.
now with there are so many books out there and so much stuff on social media. What's unique about your approach?
Mm-hmm. So, well, the uniqueness is that things are really not hard. It's not a complicated thing to be able to see things differently. It's just what we stranglehold on the pattern within the 4 walls that were shown upon us. And so it's hard to see the forest through the trees when you only know those patterns that were in those 4 walls. I love my flashes. Perfect example. You live on a street and there's about 10 houses.
Yeah.
And you could have the same, 2 mom and dad and 2 children, and they all go to the same school with the children, but everybody's going to be different because of the interaction that's happening within the 4 walls, and then what the child is owning and what they're saying to themselves and what they're trying to get themselves in or out of. You could have parents that are arguing, and the child will say, I just want this to stop. How can I be a better child? And then what they'll do is they'll start doing things to take away the pain. Come on, Mom, let's go over here. Let's go over there. Dad, let's go outside and play ball. And then as an adult, you'll go to work and your work is complete. And then hey, let me help you. Let me help you. Let me help you. And you go home and you're like, man, I'm exhausted. Why am I the only one working so hard? It turns into something just like that. But you didn't see it as an adult because you're like, I work so hard and nobody else is. But it really stemmed from you trying to save your parents from all the arguments. And you wanted to be the perfect child. So you were changing things to help them get out of their turmoil. So my approach is really simple yet very profound to make it easy so that you don't feel like, damn it, it's just one more thing. I don't have time for this. Cause, you hear that because we're overloaded with so many things in our personal life between our jobs, our children, our career. I could go on, and that they're just one more thing we don't have time to. So I incorporate these simple yet profound techniques, or the tips and tricks that I give within your life, so it doesn't feel like you're taking away from something else and trying to chisel more time into your life.
Yeah. Time is, whew, man, the 2024 has gone by so fast. It seems like time is speeding up for some reason. It's
Didn't
crazy.
23 do the same thing?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I just blinked and we're like November 23 already? Oh my God.
I mean, 1999 doesn't feel like it was that long ago. Y2K. I mean, I remember that like it was yesterday, and it's like, what happened?
Yes. Yes. Turn off your computers before they blow up.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember that. Yeah, when it comes to time, it's like, everybody is so busy. They don't have time to read. They might have time to listen to parts and pieces and bits and pieces of this podcast, audio or video.
Yeah.
Are there any tricks out there for somebody who really wants to change themselves within your approach but doesn't have time?
So what I tell them, the first thing I always say, are you meditating? You brush your teeth and go before you go outside, right? Yes. Well, you should be meditating. First thing, they give me a pushback. Well, I don't have time for that. All right, let me tell you when you can meditate. Are you in the shower? You're usually in the shower between 8 and 15 minutes, sometimes a little longer for women who have longer hair, and wash it and all that. So you do not have to think about what you're wearing, what you're doing at work. You just clear your mind. You don't have to think about the soap or the water. You just open your mind and allow answers to come in. That is what meditation is about, seeking answers. It's not just clearing the mind. Because the most funniest thing is that I'll tell many clients, did you meditate today? Yes, but all these thoughts came in and I pushed them away. Hello, they were your answers.
Yeah.
So it is about connecting to source, God energy, whatever you want to call it, higher self, source, light, all that is. I call it, source energy, or all that is. You'll hear me go back and forth with that. And it really is just connecting and getting your answers in guidance. But it's called guidance, my friends. So make sure that you're not, okay, before I do anything, I can't eat anything. I have to meditate on it because God is going to tell me. No, it's not about turning your power over. It's simply about allowing the guidance. You still have choices to make. Does it resonate for you? But it is for your best and highest good.
Yeah. What's been the most profound or strangest thing that you've ever seen or heard working with a client?
Do we have time?
Yeah.
I shared one that is very, 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 very profound, but I don't want one to be the same one all the time. There was another one that the woman was so stuck. She was a floating nurse, which means she would have a contract in a certain state to work at a hospital between 6 months to a year. The contract would expire. The company she worked for would either send her to another hospital, to another state, or she could renew that contract. So she Googled me, found me, and saw me for 6 sessions. The first session, she wouldn't even move. She was paralyzed to do anything, make no decisions. I don't know, no relationships, hadn't had them for 10 years, was telling herself, I am stuck, like glued, super glued, right? By the third session, I had her talking about renewing her contract or moving somewhere else. The 6th session, she came to me. She says, Miss Terry, I have to tell you, I booked a trip to the Northern Lights. I've always wanted to go there. She said, and I also decided to go back to, it was either Minneapolis or maybe it was Minnesota. It was one of those, Minneapolis, one of those. She says, I loved it there so much. I'm going back there. She said, I feel so empowered that I feel like I can finally now make some decisions and feel like life is happening for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so within that space, and I know it doesn't like, oh, what's the big story? Well, that was it. It was about shifting her subconscious in the fear of making decisions, because it actually stemmed from her family. Because every decision that they make, things fell apart, including money. They lost their house because of a poor decision their father made. Mother made a decision and she lost her job. And so every decision wrapped around there was showing her as a child, decisions are not to be made. And if you do it, it's going to fall apart. So she lived in a space where someone else made the decision for her, technically. You're going to go to this hospital. Do you want it? Yes or no? You can stay? Okay, I like it. You can stay. All right, you're going to go to this one. So everyone was making all these decisions for her, and she didn't have to think other than go yes or no, right? And so being able to shift the mom and the dad and the decisions and feeling so fearful it paralyzed her, allowed her to completely change and then say, I can receive this. It was either the fourth session or the fifth one. She goes, ooh, last night I had somebody visit me. I'm like, oh, really? Tell me. And it was a guy that she had met during this contract, and he had an overnight visit. And she said, but I didn't want a relationship, but I opened up enough to receive him in that space.
Yeah.
Celebrate her. Yes.
Wow.
It shifted her in 6 sessions, every which way.
Wow. Yeah.
Very profound. Very, very profound.
Huh.
And, going back to the one that I did share, it can shift physical pain as well. So when the body has physical pain, I always tell people, what were you thinking 4 to 6 months prior to whatever the incident was, right? And this particular kid, and I'll make it really short, but he broke his elbow. He was a semi-pro football player and minutes away from being NFL, being pro. And he broke his elbow 1,000 different ways, and that was the end of his career.
Yeesh.
And so his mother came to me, and then I saw all the family members, and then 50 clients later, all her clients, right? So she just started sending me all these people, but she sent her youngest son. And he came in and he says, Miss Terry, he said, I'm handicapped. No, you're not. He said, I cannot move my arm only 1/8. That's it. I couldn't get it to my body. I can't move it. I've had 8 surgeries, 3 months of physical therapy. Listen to this, everyone. Everyone told this child, because he was young when it happened and he was 24 when he saw me, that that's the best we can do. Accept it. That is the worst thing that medical industry should be telling these people.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, no, that's not going to happen with me. He laid on the table. I put my hands, I cupped it around his elbow, and I visualized the energy, because over years, this is how I've been able to harness energy and shift it and move it. And then I breathe a certain way, as if I'm breathing in the energy to come through me. And as I'm exhaling out anything that no longer serves the connection between me and the client. So, me and them, right? And then this little ripple in my hand, just sort of like that. I said, ooh. And it was within seconds of me closing my eyes and breathing. And I said, look, put your elbow up, move your arm to your chest. That dude went boom, right to his heart. He started crying. I started crying. I'm like, oh my God. We're jumping up and down. And I'm like, oh. And I said, the next visit, we're going to get your arm to the back of your back to touch your back.
Yeah.
He was paralyzed in happiness. Like he could not believe what just happened, because I shifted the emotional connection from and to the physical body. So even though he had all these surgeries and pin in his elbow and all of that, it was all these medical people that he believed said, that's it. You're not getting any better. And then I shifted that, because when that happened, I'm sure in his NFL mind, because he was seconds from it, that he said, this is the end of my career. I might as well end that I'm handicapped. And he owned it so much that his arm would not move. And I love to tell that story, because every time I see him, I'm like, oh my God, you're just a ball of energy. I love you. I call him my son from another mother. But it's so profound, and I see that often with my clients, from lower back pain, because every part of the body represents something. So hands are creation, feet are representing moving forward, legs are support, like legs of a table, right? And so if they're having pain in every part, any part of their body, I can tell you how it represents, and then I can shift it, because then the story of why it created, because shoulders are actually a perception of burden, left side mom, right side dad.
Mm,
I'm talking a lot because I'm very fast, and I'm sorry about that. So
no
people should
worries.
go back and listen to the recording. But there's a lot of information about the body, the connections, and then the emotional connection to the physical body and how you can shift it. And so when you realize certain parts of the body, and then when you go back to when that occurred, what were you thinking 4 to 6 months before? I hope everyone's taking notes. 4 to 6 months before, you can usually pinpoint what was in their head, what they were thinking, what they were experiencing. Then they might have to go through forgiveness, may forgive another person, forgive themselves, and forgive God, because God can be involved in here, and then people get very angry. And he was actually very angry with God as well, because at the age of 8 to 24, well, it was about 21, all he knew and lived and breathed was football. So then when that happened, he's like, God, why did you do this? Why did you set me up for failure? And then now he's, disconnecting from God, and it's taken him longer to get to his end result, longer to create the things he wants, because he feels alone and abandoned from everyone, including God.
Wow. Yeah, it is amazing how we have a tendency of programming ourselves with the power of belief. Just the power of belief in and of itself. Just it it's a destructive force, yet it's also a creative force. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's like the
Mm-hmm.
power of Shiva, it's destructive and creative.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. It's pretty powerful. And the most interesting, for some reason, I knew I think it was either the name of your podcast or maybe you in general, but I don't talk about this much, but when I do, it's like, what? So I have seen people that have embodied other souls that are not theirs. You can label it possessed.
mm,
When I first saw it, I worked out of a salt cave in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, once a month.
yeah.
Once a month, I worked out of there. And I would drive 2 hours one way to
Wow.
do an hour session, and then drive 2 hours home. And I did it for 5 years, every month. And I never missed a month. And
Wow.
the first time I saw this quote unquote possession, you can label it that. I just, whatever. It's another entity in a body.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it at the first time I saw it, it was a group of 10 people. The room was packed because it maxed out at 10. And I was working on one client, and again, it's group energy clearing. And what I do is I'll collectively shift energy, and then I'll hurry up and touch people one by one in the group. Okay. I do it in my private studio now, but it's about 8 people, but it was in a salt cave, and salt is a conduit of energy, and,
Yeah.
and it's the ions that help free things. So it was almost like an extra bonus when you were doing it in the salt cave, right?
Yeah.
And so I was working on this one woman, and I could hear it's granulated salt on the floor. Oh, this is a great story. You have to listen. This is so great. So I heard this granulation moving, and I look over, and I see her hand moving really quick over her body. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? Because I'm working on one woman. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go over and work on her next, because maybe she's just, hot or whatever. I didn't realize she was drawing a pattern. So I finished with the one woman, and I walk over to her. Now they're laying down, and I'm standing up, and I'm looking down at her, and she's doing this pendulum thing. And so fast that it took, like, if I blinked, I would have missed it. It was almost like you're watching a movie and you fast forward it 100 times.
Yeah.
I could not believe how fast she was moving. I wasn't scared. And it was the very first time I had seen this type of energy in someone else. And I thought, this is very interesting. What do I do with that? Because these new things that were happening.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, let's figure this out. So I kneeled next to her and I put my hand just gently close to her throat, not over the throat, but it's that connection between the throat and the heart. But I heard just gently lay here. And then in my head, I heard strangle her, strangle her. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. But it was this, like, this is not right because this is not what I do. And then I asked her just totally out of the blue, do you have a son? She completely stopped everything, sat up and said, why do you think I'm going to have one? As if now she's present again. And I said, no, I'm just asking. She laid back down and continued to do this. Then all of a sudden she starts growling. And then all of a sudden her jaw opens up and then it just goes back. And then it opens up so wide, I literally could see all the way down her throat. And I said, well, that's pretty interesting. Like like, what do I do with that? Because that's what I'm saying. Okay, God, what do I do with this now? Hold on. And I could see in my mind's eye, her face trying to come out of her body and then would get sucked back in, come out and get sucked back in. So it's telling me that her soul is being held. So something else is overrunning it, because I have now seen it a lot since then. Okay. So I've seen this pattern now, but that was the very first time. So I continued to work on her. She settled down. But while I was working on her, and it was only like 5 minutes, the entire room, silence. I could not hear anyone breathing. It was getting chilly in there. And I'm like, is this like good versus evil? I mean, you ask yourself these questions and you kind of laugh, you kind of chuckle because you're not in a space of fear, because there's nothing for me to fear because I've worked with this, but that was the first time I had seen something like that. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, we'll figure this out. And then I felt this push on my right arm. And I said, that's interesting. And then I heard, I can help you. And I said, well, please do. And then I was just putting my hand on my arms and things like that to shift energy. But I knew inside that it wouldn't let her go. And I felt like I had a whole room of people that weren't responding or anything, but this woman is growling and making noise. And I said, I have to let her be because I now have 7 other people I have to work on because I worked on these 2, right?
Yeah.
So I left the room. We were over with. It gets really good, my friend. I left the room. Now remember, I asked her if she had a little boy. And then I told you how, she was going back and forth. Yeah. I left the room and I was speaking to the owner of the Salt Cave. And she said, did you see him? I said, girl, you weren't even in the room. What are you talking about? Girl, I need to tell you everything. Now, we were friends and I can talk to her like that. She said, no, I need to tell you. Did you see the little boy? Dude, my head spun around. I said, what are you talking about? What? She said, there was 2 women in the room and I hadn't worked on them until the end. It had nothing to do with the girl going crazy. That the woman, it was a mom and a daughter. The mom lost her 8-year-old son he was 6, in a freak accident. It was a baby roller coaster. You put your little kids on those pop-up, amusement parks. And he was tiny. And he was in the very first car with his sister, who was now grown, in the room with me. They came to see me to see if they could speak to the brother. Ooh. The brother was the one trying to help me with this woman who was possessed.
Wow.
It was like all circling around. That's what I said. I'm like, what? What? She said, you saw him. And I said, no, I felt him. He wanted to help me. And the owner of the Salt Cave never told me. So now I'm like going, what? Like, oh my God. So I was like one of those like, wow, this is really cool happening, because there was no seeds planted at all, that it all came to fruition all together. Oh, and then when everyone was coming out of the room and I said, did you hear any noise? They said, oh, I just heard somebody clearing their throat. Oh, I just heard some. Because that entity inside that woman stopped everything in that room. Because I told you, remember, every month for 5 years, I would drive out and do that Salt Cave session, right?
Yeah.
Every person always hears everything. They will either interrupt my session, they'll talk, they'll cough, they'll laugh, they'll sit up. Not a single person, that was the only time out of 19 years, not a single person said they said, no, I didn't open my eyes. They didn't open their eyes. I could not hear them breathing. There was not a single noise in that room the entire time that I worked on that woman. And not a single person knew what was happening. Blew me away.
Wow.
It can get a little crazy. I have seen, that was my first, and I've seen many after that. And each one I have seen it get more powerful, let's use that word, within that individual. And it always starts the same way, because I saw the pattern, except for the woman doing the pendulum thing over her. But I've seen it in that Salt Cave many times with other people since then. And then I've seen it in not in my new studio, because I just moved May 1st, but I saw it at my other studio, where it starts with they're laying down on the bed. So pretend this is my hand laying down on the bed. And it'll start with that twitch.
Yeah.
You see? It'll start with a twitch. It'll usually like that, or their head will do that, but it's usually like that. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. And the last one was, whoa, she was levitating off the bed. She was screaming like, I'm surprised China didn't hear her. Like the country of China, it was crazy. And they speak tongues, because what they're doing is they're trying to overtake me into fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, when I first started seeing it and the more it grew, I'm like, you got to stop. This is theatrics,
Yeah,
we're
right.
not in a play. You just got to stop this and be quiet, because I don't need to hear any screaming. And then the last one was really bad, because, I would call in angels and God and Jesus. And I mean, I was calling everybody. And then as soon as I was speaking, then they would come back and then use what I labeled tongues, or what you heard, tongue. I couldn't understand, but it was, and I knew it was trying to negate what I was saying. After doing this work for so long, you live in knowing. That's the clairsentience in me. And I knew, I'm like, oh no, you're trying to negate, to cut short or lower what I just called in. And I said, I'm not going to let that happen. Hell,
Heck no.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
For a while, I was like, okay, am I like the Ghostbuster in people's bodies?
There's many different types of Ghostbusters. Different types.
But, here's the thing, though, and I want to share this. People go, oh my God, this is crazy. Is this real? People are allowing this. They are allowing the entity to enter into this physical body. And this is what this last one did. She went to go have ayahuasca. You don't do that when you're grieving.
Ooh,
No. Her mother had died, and she actually is a death doula. So she, understood the caring, but it was her mother. And so when her mother transitioned, massive grief.
Wow.
And she had already planned to go to this retreat and take ayahuasca. Well, while they were there, she did it. And afterwards, the main, I don't remember what they call them, priest or whatever they call them, came to her and started doing all this magic around her. And my client said, what are you doing? Well, you are grieving so badly. We're afraid for you now. I'm like, oh my God. What happened was she left her vessel, the physical body. When you leave the physical body, you're leaving an empty vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 7 planes of the body. And within that first plane is the etheric field. The physical one is the number 1. The second is the etheric field. And that's usually where disease and things can enter. Well, if you have an empty vessel, it slipped through her. Ooh, I feel it. It slipped through her etheric field into the physical body. So then when she came home, she was going back and forth in between this entity and herself. And she didn't realize what was going on. She just said, "Oh I'm so much better at doing Reiki." That's what she was doing. "I'm so much better at doing these things." And I said, "Okay, let's see what's going on." And then when this entity really was powerful, I said, "Girl," and then I said, we got to tame this thing and get it out of you. And that one was one of the strongest ones that I don't want to label it demonic, because it wasn't doing that. It was controlling her to the physical body to bring energy so that it can use it for whatever its purpose was while she was working on other people. So I told her, I said, "You got to give yourself 6 months and step away from that." Because she did have another job. And I said, "Don't do any energy work at all. Don't do any death doula stuff at all for 6 months." I said, "You're giving it strength and power while you're working on other people. So you have to just back off." So she allowed it to come in because she was saying, "Please, someone help me, someone help me, someone help me." And that's why I tell people, be very careful, especially the elderly, when they're single and they're like, "I wish someone would help me." And before they know it, their lights are flashing on and off. And I tell them, an entity can come in and look like Jesus or feel like it's a good calming energy source, but I call it a trickster. And then before you know it, it's tormenting you, it's touching you, and it's doing things that are not good for you.
Yeah, we definitely invite.
And I'm sorry that story was so long.
Oh, no worries. No worries. We definitely invite these things, these malevolent forces, whether they're demonic or not, just malevolence and bullies in the spirit world, whether those that have been in human form or not. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that can alcohol abuse, drug abuse, different lifestyles.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah. It's crazy. I've seen it. I I tell people, be careful what especially those who want to dabble into the arts, into the crafts and stuff like that. So especially at a young age, I've seen people just kind of tell stories of what they did and growing up and finally getting through years and years and years of attachments.
Yes. And people still playing with things. "Oh, I'm going to play with this little spell. I got this book." And I'm like, this is serious stuff, people. I did a lot of work when Clubhouse first started coming out. I would jump in and out of rooms and had a really strong following very quickly because, I remember one room, this girl was using her sacral, which is the sexual energy. She says, I'm going to heal people through my sexual energy. And I said, and I just let it loose. And I said, "Girl, let me just tell you one thing." I said, "If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it." I said, because before you know it, you're going to be the case study and you're not going to want them touching you all night long and doing things that you can't stop. "Oh yeah. The other day," I'm like, "Oh my goodness, why in the world?" It's not, we have to take this serious. When you meet me like you are now and anybody else, I am very serious about what I do. You'll find that I joke and I'm laughing, but I'm serious when it comes to working with your energy, working with the non-physical. It's not a joke.
Nope.
And people like, "Oh, I'm just going to play with this." No, because you can start causing so many problems with yourself, your family members. I've had people call me, "Oh my God, this woman wanted to clear my house and now the doors are slamming." And I'm like, "Oh," and then why did you were my client. Why did you let somebody else do that?
Right? Oh man. It's nuts.
But I'm truly serious about what I do. But again, you'll see me laugh and carry on. But no, when I work with you and I'm working with people, group settings, individuals, I work with couples as well, that it is a serious matter about, how to interact with energy, how you get triggered, why you get triggered, and the subconscious. I bring up, because, it's there's 5 ways to create the limiting beliefs. Mom, dad, or mom and dad like figures, like grandparents, right? Caregivers. God, someone else, or something else. And so when I'm working with couples, they don't know why they're triggering each other. They're just knowing that Sue is angry and Tony is like, why are you so angry? And that shit, right? And so then I'll just read her energy. And there was one very profound, I just saw the flash, that she raised herself starting at the age of 6.
Whoa.
Her mother gave her away to the grandmother. Grandma was really old, just watched TV all the time. So she raised herself. So, and I see this often where adults don't know the emotion that they're going through because of the parent not saying that's anger, frustration, rage. And so she and didn't understand which emotion was what. And here she's a 30-year-old woman. So then when I looked at him and I said, you had caregivers that told you what sadness and happiness and frustration was. And I said, I can see it. I'm reading it in your energy. I said, but she's just telling you she's sad and she's raging and you don't understand why. I said, so now you become the teacher. I said, tell her I'm feeling this and this is what this represents. When they came back to me the next time, they said, you have no idea how our lives have changed. Because he was thinking about leaving the relationship, came back and he says, oh no, she's my queen forever. That they were able to bond through that, understanding why she couldn't get through and feel so controlling because she had to raise herself. So that was a form of her controlling everything, right? Then also understanding her feelings. And then him knowing now that she didn't understand her feelings. And then he became her teacher. So powerful.
Whoa. That's profound.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Man.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, are you able to pick up anything on about me?
Yes. Well, you saw my eyes, so my eyes took a minute. Well, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I'm gonna come out, but I don't know what, I tell everybody.
I think by now my audience knows me. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So remember I said 5 ways to pick up limiting beliefs. You have one, it's someone else. I love because I don't see someone else often, and it's a female. So mom's side, dad's side. Mom's side, it's on the mom's side. Grandmother, were you close to your mom's mom?
Great grandmother, my mom's grandmother.
Okay. All right. Because when I see it, there's certain ways that I see where it is. This block of energy is going at an angle to the left side mom, remember, or feminine energy. So it's going to an angle, which is telling me through mom and going at an angle. So it's telling me someone else. And then when I had to ask dad's side or mom's side, strong mom's side. So that's why, I was getting that. So you have a lot of limiting beliefs, quite a few I heard. So let me back up. So I wanted to reword it. Quite a few limiting beliefs through her. And this is common that, I could tell you so many stories that, that I see through grandparents that are unintentional. Let me show you how to do certain things as a little boy or a child or whatever. Let me give you this. Don't tell anyone. Let me do this. And then what happens is now they're showing you old ways and what they think, is proper, and it's unintentional, and it's not a bad thing. Mac, I mean, there was one where the grandmother taught the girl how to be prim and proper, setting the table, how to serve tea, how to serve everyone. Yeah. Well, she's still serving everyone at 40 years old, and she's tired and frustrated. So you see how that can happen. So it's going to take me a minute. It's going to take me more than a minute because I see we have a minute left. But that's what I'm picking up for you. I mean, I could share it afterwards or whatever.
Because she now, my great grandmother, comes into a lot of, if I'm doing certain seances or group seances and stuff, she'll come in and present herself to everybody in the room.
Yes.
And she'll
dominant. I heard she's a dominant force. Was she a dominant force when there you go.
Yeah.
And so she's still doing it, and she's patting me on the back. She's going, thank you. Oh, I can really feel her now. She can get
And
back, lady.
and I didn't, yeah, and I didn't realize she had mediumistic abilities when I knew her, but when she passed away many years ago, um, it wasn't until recently that I realized she never told anybody that she was a medium or had gifts and stuff like that. But
She was afraid.
yeah, yeah,
People would think she was crazy,
yeah,
and she was far from crazy.
far
Yeah,
from it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Yep, yep.
cool. Again, everybody can find you at Terry Christine, TERRIE Christine.com, and go find her book, The Secret Power of You, A Guide to Mastering Your Inner Greatness. Christine,
Yes.
thank you very much for joining us today. So much.
Oh, I
Namaste.
love it. I love this. I love sharing these stories. I don't share them as much unless people ask me. And so to be able to share this with your audience, I hope they understand, where this comes from, how many different avenues things are and what can happen when you're kind of playing, and to take this work more serious. If you're wanting to step into it or to see things, then take it serious. But
Yeah,
thank you. I'm very honored and grateful.
very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for joining Conscious Radio Network's The Seance, and we will see you next time.